Hi, everybody. Thank you and welcome to our short demo on PO Advantage. For those of you who are just now joining us, sorry, I shared my whole screen instead of the page I meant to. For those of you who are just now joining us, if you have any questions for us, please put those in the chat and one of the HPS staff will pass those questions along as we go. We want to give you a quick overview of the purpose of PO Advantage and how it works. And hopefully address any questions you might have related to how it might be useful inside of your own organization. So I'm going to start just by logging in. We'll kind of walk through the entire process and show you how the application works. Just give me a second here. So when you first log in to PO Advantage, you'll notice that there's a center panel here that kind of manages all of the transaction workflow. And so our goal in PO Advantage is to provide a purchasing platform for all of your vendors and potentially all of your spend inside of your organization. With a single website to go to. Now, some of you are going to say, well, I really enjoy the experience on GFS's website, and I want to be able to continue to use that. We do enable what we call punch outs, which allow you to continue to shop on those sites while getting all of the purchase order controls that you need inside of PO Advantage as well. So this center panel here basically allows you to be able to manage a purchase order as it is created inside the system and then works its way through the different stages of ordering, fulfillment, and even the transactions into the invoice and accounts payable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of walk us through one of these first, and then we'll get a little more granular as we go along. So let's start with the ordering process. Under the ordering tab, you'll notice that there's several different mechanisms for creating a purchase order. In addition to these, we also have a mobile application that runs on both Android and iOS. And we have a little fob scanner that allows you to scan either products or shelf labels to create orders. We'll come back to this little device because we can also use this for dispensing if you want to do true perpetual inventory inside of your locations. So I'm going to start just by generating a purchase order a couple of different ways. We've got just a regular create order. This will look super familiar to you because it allows you just to type in the part or all of a description or part of all of a product number and add it to a purchase order. So for example, if I type in SYR for syringe, a series of syringes start coming up. If I select one of these, it automatically adds it to the purchase order and it gives me the ability to update my quantity. So let's just say I'm ordering 8 or 6 boxes of that particular syringe. One of the things that we've done here is we've got sort of a cover sheet for our purchase order, and then we've got a per vendor tab as well. So you'll notice this particular item on our item master we've determined comes from McKesson. And so as we select that item, it's automatically going to build us a McKesson purchase order. Now, the interesting part about this is that, and you may have different divisions inside of your organization that order different types of items and this kind of thing. That's perfectly fine. But let's just say that we were a single purchasing agent and we're buying everything. We could just as easily search for ketchup and select that item, and notice that item, of course, is being sourced from Gordon Food Service. And I've got a single cover sheet purchase order, but now I've got 2 different tabs for 2 different vendors. Okay, so imagine here also your office supplies. You theoretically could have service vendors here as well, but the goal really is to be able to manage all of this in a single location for all of your vendors. We have some larger organizations that have 80 to 100 vendors. There's no real limit on how many vendors you can add inside the system, but the goal is to get all of it into a single spot. Notice here just a couple of things about this page. First of all, you can hover over the item and see its order history. So you can see the total ordered over whatever period of time, how many POs is it on, and what's the average quantity per purchase order. This really matters if you're building out purchase orders and then having them approved by a different person, because the approving logged in user can just at a glance see what the history of that item is. So any of those individual items, we do that for you. Now, down below, you'll notice that something else is happening here. As we add items, we are automatically coding them for the general ledger. So in this situation, I've got one item that's not assigned at all. This Gordon Food Service item is not assigned to a GL code. That top item is. And so you can imagine if I've got, a series of wound care items or personal care items or whatever they are, each of those categories on the GL are going to be automatically broken down on each individual purchase order. And this helps if you do an integration to your accounting system on the back end. It allows us to push a purchase order over to your accounting system and have those items already coded for you. Now, one of the other things that occurs here is that I apply a whole series of order rules. So when I click this approve and send button, I happen to have the authority to do both because we're doing a demo. You can have users that can't approve a purchase order. They can only send it to approving users. That's one of the options that we have. But if I click this, notice this says all orders will be sent to distributors. That means that I passed all of my order rules. However, if I had an order rule that had been breached, I would get an order alert here that may say something like, hey, Patty has to approve this order because you're spending over your maximum per order, just to give you an example. And we can look at some of those order rules and how they work in just a second. But for now, I'll just go ahead and click on the approve all button. And basically, this is going to go through the system and then be available to be confirmed electronically. We still send out all of these purchase orders electronically. So what happens is we send it to the vendor electronically, and then we get a confirmation back electronically, usually within about 10 or 15 minutes. And so any items that come into that purchase order that are not going to be shipped or going to be back ordered, we get notifications for those automatically. And you can see here, I've got a bucket for back ordered items down below. Hardly any of your vendors, except for manual vendors that you've added that maybe you call in an order or something like that, none of those are really going to end up in the confirmed bucket. I've got this one set up so that I can show you how that works, but most of those are going to be electronically confirmed and move straight into the waiting to be received bucket. But I'm going to go ahead and do a confirmation here real quick. Notice that it has my original order quantities here as well as my confirmations, and whatever you ordered, it's assuming that you're trying to confirm. So you're really confirming by exception as you go along. And you'll see the same thing on each of these layers. So as you begin to receive, we'll also make that same assumption that you're trying to receive what was confirmed. So I'll go ahead and click on that confirm order button just so that it moves it out. And you can see here, I had an order that was in progress. That this is an earlier order, but it's in my in progress bucket, and notice that it's got an approval breach. So it could not even get it into the approved bucket, waiting to be approved bucket, because it did not pass one of those order rules that I was mentioning before. Okay, let's assume for just a second that our purchase order is all confirmed now electronically, and now we're waiting for those items to come in and be received. And what we're really trying to do here is make an electronic version of the packing slip checkoff, right? So when the cases are actually delivered to your back loading dock or whatever, you are going through that process and actually telling the system that you've received what you originally ordered. So let's take a look at that order that we just created. I'm going to click on the receive part of McKesson, and notice that we started with one purchase order, but now we've got it split out because we expect that those shipments are coming in from different vendors at different times. So we want to be able to receive them based off of what the vendor is. So I'm going to start with this McKesson one here, and we'll click on the receive button. Notice here that I've actually ordered 6, I've confirmed 6, and now I'm assuming again that I'm receiving 6. Okay, and so again, this is really just to make you be able to receive by exception. If you had 50 line items and only one of them had an exception on the receiver, you want to just be able to change that one line and be done with it. A couple of other things, we've also got the capability to upload a PDF here. That allows you to be able to scan a packing slip, for example, and bind it up to the receiver. And you say, well, maybe why would I really want to go through that process? It's kind of time consuming to do that. But remember, our final goal here is maybe to send this over to accounts payable with a payment packet. And so you want to have all of the evidence that is related to that purchase order kind of grouped together in a bundle. And that receiving slip allows you to be able to put all of those pieces of paper together. So let's just assume here for a second that maybe I'm only receiving 5 right now. And we had one of them that was back ordered or delayed or just didn't show up in the box. I can click on my receive order line here and notice what happened. This didn't get cleared from my receive bucket. It got moved into the yellow bucket. So this was originally 1. So if I open this one up and I look at my McKesson again, I'm just going to open this same one again. Notice that I have one of the receivers down here that has a quantity of 5. My original order quantity was 6. I've got a pending quantity still open of 1. And so this allows me to manage these multiple receivers very, very easily. When this item comes in, you can click on the receive order, or maybe you source that somewhere else and you just want to close that line and make it disappear from the bucket. You can do either one of those things. I'm going to go ahead and click on the receive again for that one. And notice that it drops out of that waiting to be received, and now it's in my waiting to be invoiced bucket. Okay. And just like with the confirmation, we're going to automatically get an electronic invoice for most of these items, right? And so you want to just kind of understand that most of this action for both confirmation and invoicing is not going to have to be manual. Most of it's going to happen electronically. But I'm just going to click on the manual invoice to show you what this looks like. Again, maybe you got a smaller vendor that's just giving you a PDF invoice and you want to really flip that around and have it coded properly so it's ready for accounts payable. We give you that capability to do that. Let's switch this to net 30, and maybe I'll copy my bill to over here into this, and I'm ready to go. If I needed to add a line or add taxes, additional tax lines, or maybe a fuel surcharge, you can do all of that here. If you wanted to upload a PDF invoice here, just like we did with the receiver, you can do that as well. You could put some internal notes. If you have some notes for your accounts payable department, you can do that. And then once you're done, you can just click on the create invoice. And again, you can imagine that this just came in electronically as well if it's an electronic vendor, and that invoice is ready to approve and pay. And so in that situation, you can send that over to accounts payable automatically. You can also send it for review. Let's just say that you're the person that placed that order. There's something weird about the invoice that doesn't look right. You can send that for review. You could close it and not send it over to accounts payable, or you could edit or dispute it, any of those things. I mentioned sort of that whole packet. So I want to show you what that looks like. So this is a payment packet. It basically has the original order, the 2 different receivers that we had here, and then the total, the receiving total and the invoice total, and those ultimately are matching up to what your order was. It's just showing that there was a variance in between here. But the cool part about it is I've got all of those documents bundled together. So I've got my order, I've got my confirmation, I've got the first receiver, I've got my second receiver, and I've got my invoice, and you can see I've got my little McKesson thing. I don't have my remit to in my test account, so forgive my logo is a little whacked out there. But essentially, that entire packet is now ready, and it can be sent over electronically to your accounts payable system. And we do integration with a bunch of existing ones. The most common, obviously, are things like Sage, QuickBooks, those kind of things. Great Plains Dynamics, we integrate to all of those already. And so it provides a really easy methodology to control that. Now, we do have, notice that these buckets, I kind of zoomed through this process. So we've got these ready to pays down here, but essentially whenever you have any of those in the ready to pay bucket, these are different level user for the normal implementation. So you don't have the same person that placed an order also approving invoices. You can isolate each one of these buckets by user and user type. Okay, so that's kind of the full walkthrough of the purchase order process and how it goes through the system individually. I want to back up and show you just at least one other methodology for placing an order that is pretty intuitive and easy to use as well. And it'll just kind of show you that there are different ways of doing this, right? So let's do a quick order this time. And this is just a quick way to see your entire item master all at one time and just update the quantities in the list. If you think of it as kind of a quick pad of being able to edit those things, you can do that. You also have the ability to have templates to shorten that process. So let's say, for example, that I wanted to add this item to my favorites list, and maybe I'll add a few of these other items to my favorites list. All I'm doing is clicking on them to create, to make that star solid. Okay, and then once that's done, they're in my template for my favorites. So if I choose my favorites here, now just those items are showing up for me to be able to place an order. And you can create a whole wide range of templates. But essentially, this screen is just a preliminary to that order screen that we started with in our first example. So for example, I'll just put in some quantities here for our template. Let's just do 4 there. Notice I left one of those 0 for a reason. We'll end up with only 4 line items in our purchase order instead of all 5 because I left one of those 0. We can also, by the way, search and add items to our list as well. It operates very similarly to the next screen. But once we click on that review order, it basically just takes us back to that main page that we were originally looking at, right? It has our quantities pre-filled in. Still gives us the ability to make changes to it. We can check our GL codes, make sure everything's coded properly. I didn't point this out earlier, but we do have the ability to have actual images for the product, and that's obviously dependent upon the vendor, but we have a special relationship with McKesson that allows us to get item images from McKesson and get them preloaded onto your item master. Just a couple of other things while we're on this screen. I mentioned the template. I could save this particular order as a specific template that's not just my favorites template. So anytime you add something to this order, you could save it as a template and then retrieve it later. And then you can also click on the templates button to select one that you want to create an order from, or you could copy an existing order from a previous order cycle. So I'll just click on approve and send on this one as well. So that gives you just kind of a quick overview of some of the ways that we can generate a purchase order. I want to back up one step here and show you another layer of functionality that's available, particularly for people that have multiple locations, either inside of a single building, or you have a central supply or a warehouse that is supplying items for multiple buildings. We have a transfer process that's available inside of PO Advantage. Some people call that requisition, by the way. So it's operating as a methodology to request some internal location fulfillment of items that need to go through and be passed off to that outlying location. A lot of people call that requisition because any outlying location will request from Central Supply whatever they need, and it's up to Central Supply whether they fulfill that out of Central Supply warehouse location or they place an order for that. So we do have that layer of functionality. I'm just going to show you a couple of features related to that. I don't want to get too deep into it because it can take take a good bit of time to kind of demonstrate that entire functionality. But under the transfer section here, if we click on transfers, you'll notice a lot of similarities here. This is going to look a lot like our purchase order. And the goal there really is to be able to say, hey, when you're logged in as this type of user and you're doing this thing, you can also at some point be logged in as a transfer user and be doing this other thing. And the whole workflow is very, very similar. Okay. And so you see here, the searches you type is still here. So I'm going to just type in syringe again. We'll select one of the syringes, or no, that's syrup. No, bad demo, David. Hold on a second. I'll select a syringe this time. Okay. There we go. So I select a syringe. Notice it doesn't care about the vendor this time, right? We're going from my Wing 2 closet. So that's where I'm logged in as. I'm simulating this, obviously, but that's where I'm logged in as, and I'm requesting it from Central Supply. Okay, so I don't care about vendor at this stage. All I'm doing is requesting product, and I can ask for, 5 quantity or whatever. And then when I submit that transfer request, that goes into, and again, I'd be logged in as a different user, but that goes into the requesting cycle to be fulfilled. Okay. So for example, if I wanted to say, hey, I'm now going to fulfill that. Let me just see if I can go to pending transfers. Maybe I don't have the authority set to do that. Yeah, I apologize for that. I didn't turn that on for myself. So you can imagine that if I'm a Central Supply person now, I have this request for this particular transfer. Notice it says awaiting fulfillment. I have the ability to check those lines and receive and fulfill those into the particular warehouse. Let me see if I go straight there, if I have that option. Yeah, very good. There I do. So if I click on that particular one, I can click on the fulfill button, and notice it says, okay, I'm getting a request for 5. It thinks that my current on-hand quantity is 26. And the quantity fulfilled and quantity on order are also options. So if I'm the person in Central Supply, I might say, okay, I'm going to fulfill 3 because my quantity on hand is wrong for some reason, right? And then I need to be able to order the rest. So I could click on the order remainder and it'll fill that out for me, or you could just do the arrow up or down, or you could type in the value of that, right? And so if I click on fulfill my transfer here, it goes ahead and moves those over into that location, and they're ready to be received. But I could click on this particular one and click on ready to order, and notice that it's going to bring in the quantity on hand value and queue me up to generate a purchase order. So if I click on this generate order here, this is going to put those 2 that I said I needed to order on my purchase order, and then I'm ready to approve and send it, or I could add additional items, either one. Now, I'm going to go through this order pretty quickly because I want to show you something very specific about this one. If I approve this one, okay, and then I go down here and I go to receive it, notice that I have a new button here. This says receive and fulfill because it knows that this quantity of 2 was available on a fulfillment request from another location. So I'll click on that receive and fulfill. And again, notice that my quantity on order was 2. So my fulfillment quantity now is 2. And so basically I can do the fulfill all here. Well, I guess it's thinking that I need the 2 there. So then I up it to 2 there, and I can fulfill that transfer as a separate transfer request. And now all of my Central Supply requests are completely clear. Now, I didn't go through every nuanced detail of this. We have a pick and pack slip for the central warehouse. We have put away locations, shelf bin, those kind of things for the central warehouse as well. So all of those components are available and are completely controlled by login level as well. Okay, so let's imagine now we've got all of our quantity on hand set and we're kind of ready to go, and we want to be able to also dispense those items out. Any situation where you're doing perpetual inventory, when you order something, you can receive it in. When you receive it in, it brings your quantity on hands up, right? In order to know that you are going through that entire cycle, you need to be able to charge those out as well. Now, some of you may say, well, I don't have time to do all of that. I'm not interested in doing dispensement. That's perfectly okay, by the way. Centralized purchasing in a single platform is reason enough to jump on PO Advantage, right? With all of the integration that we do to accounts payable in particular. But this does have an entire dispensing system that I want to demonstrate to you real quickly here. And I'll just make sure that we move through this in order that we can see the item master before we're done here. So let's just do a couple of quick dispenses, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways of doing this. The first one I want to show you is touch screen mode. And the purpose of showing you this mode is that we also have a mobile app that behaves like this for dispensing. And again, if you're a facility that doesn't really want to do dispensing directly to patients or residents, that's perfectly okay. You can also toggle this through and do discharge count dispensing. So you might have particular charge accounts that you want to be able to assign those dispensements to. You can absolutely do that as well. I'll just show you a couple of patient dispenses really quick, just to kind of show you how fast it can be. People have done this, by the way, with a touchscreen tablet on an Android tablet or something like that, as well as a touchscreen laptop actually in the browser. So either one of those, basically the functionality is identical. If you have a large population that you're searching, you can search and it'll limit the number of buttons that you have there, for example. But if you click on one of these, the one thing that we're doing here that's I think is really interesting is we're keeping the history with a particular charge account and creating the items that have previously been charged out to that particular patient or account as buttons ready to charge. So for example, I've done these syringes here, and notice that this brief here I'm charging out thinks that I don't have enough quantity on hand to actually dispense it. It doesn't stop me, because we know that inventory management is hard, and we want to be able to give you the ability to dispense something that's right in front of you while still giving you a notification on screen that that quantity on hand needs to be evaluated. Okay, so to charge out those items that have been previously charged, super easy. All I do is touch those buttons, hit the dispense button. If I have another patient that has some charges, but it's not the item that I need, it's also super simple. All I have to do is click on the search products, start searching for an item, select it. And if you had multiples that you were going to select out of the same set, it's okay. But notice that it automatically brings it as a brand new button down here and automatically clicks it as a 1. So if you've got quantity of 3, all you have to do is tap it a couple more times and you're ready to go. And then you can hit the dispense button. Now, there are, just like there's multiple ways to order, there are multiple ways to dispense. I particularly like being able to dispense with this little fob scanner. And if you'll see, I try and get it in the, it's basically a little keychain size scanner. It actually comes with a lanyard that you can hang around your neck as well. Pretty nice little tool. But I'm going to show something very specific related to dispensing. I'm going to show you how to dispense a medication out of our system. So I've got some Flonase here. Basically, this is the prescription Flonase, and on the end of this box, you'll notice something pretty unusual about it. It's got a little 2D barcode scan, and what it includes in this scan is its item number, its serial number, its expiration date, and its lot number. So we do lot numbers and expiration dates on any products that are serialized in our system, and that's completely configurable. You can order this item and then receive it into your inventory with this scanner, and it'll automatically build your lot number and expiration date. And of course, we can also dispense this guy. So this works in connected and disconnected mode. I like it in disconnected mode because it can walk around a facility with you around your neck whenever you need it to, and you don't have to be tethered over Bluetooth to a laptop or something like that. So I leave it in disconnected mode, and I've printed out a couple of barcodes for those same residents / patients that are in my system. And I'm just going to scan a couple of these as though I'm dispensing. So I'm going to scan my barcode for Jasper Johns. You should be able to hear that beep. And then I'm going to scan that little G10 barcode on the end here. And so I've dispensed one bottle of Flonase to Jasper Johns. And now let's just imagine that I'd done that all day, no problem whatsoever. I come back to my computer, I go to my dispensing page, and I click on the sync scanner button. And this shows you exactly what's on the scanner. Now, you may say, well, that's crazy gobbledygook. There's no reason to do that. This gives us the ability to be able to know exactly what was on the scanner prior to the synchronization. And it doesn't really matter that much other than you can see it's actually synchronizing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press and hold this button in the middle, and it's going to link it up via Bluetooth to my computer. You should be able to hear it here in a second. There it goes, linked up. And now I'm going to press that little tiny button on the bottom, and it's going to synchronize what's on the scanner into this little sync scanner window. And again, looks like a bunch of gobbledygook, right? But if I click on this process scans button, that processes that one into a charge. And notice right here on the top, that item is my Flonase. It has a charge code of 270, product ID of 721880. It's a McKesson product, and it's charged out to Jasper Johns. So that's a super easy way to be able to do lot number expiration, both receiving and dispensing with this device. And really the magic of that is the type of scanner that this is, and making sure that it can actually read that lot number and expiration date in that combined little G10 barcode. Okay, let's move on now to a couple of other pieces. I want to show you the item master and how that is managed. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on is our implementation process. And so what we do typically is we do a discovery phone call with your organization. And we want to have our customer success team connected directly to the people that are going to be ordering ordering items through the system, and that have a knowledge of all the vendors that we're going to use. And in those situations, what we do is we help coordinate getting your ordering history loaded into the system for you. Now, if you're an HPS member, which you guys are, we have the added bonus of having your spend history for Gordon Foods and McKesson already loaded in HPS CAT. So if you onboard, we can pull the item masters that are already existing there into PO Advantage for you automatically. But we know that you're going to have additional vendors. And so because of that, we want to have our customer success team involved in helping you get those item masters or spend history reports from any of those other existing vendors so that we can get them preloaded for you. We also hold your hand through the process of getting them connected to GL codes or charge codes. We go through the training process so that we can automatically get the team up to speed very, very quickly. We want to make sure that you can be very successful in the implementation process. Typically, that whole start to finish, depending on the size of your organization and the number of vendors, it takes 30 to 60 days to get all of those pieces together. Excuse me, I'm going to have just a quick sip here of some water. And so I want to show you what one of these item masters looks like, because I get that question a lot, kind of what does it mean to have an item master? If you've been ordering items all across the internet, going to each vendor's website, you may not know what all of those items are, right? You may just be getting invoices, checking to see if they are generally what you ordered, and then signing off of them and getting them paid. In this situation, we're going to be more specific and we're going to help you manage that process. So I'm going to just click over here real quick. Actually, let me clear off my filter. I've got my reset filter. So this is my McKesson item master for my test account here that I have. And you can see I've got about 300 items in here. And if you scroll through here, you can see some of these are indicated as being on contract. And forgive my test data, I have not bound all of these up to the proper contracts and everything. But you can see here, I've got the HPS symbol here, and it is connecting it to that contract, and it's saying that it's a contract that is actually connected and doesn't have an expiration date right now. I mentioned earlier that these items have images associated with them. So each one of those you can click on and see images if you need to. But let's get into the details of one of these items. I'm going to just click on the edit button here and show you the kind of information that we're managing for you. So for example, this item is purchased by the case, but it's dispensed by the bag. And there are, in this situation, 3 bags per case. And so this allows you to dispense by the bag easily. And after you've dispensed 3 bags, it knows that you've used a case automatically. Also, if you are generating a purchase order based on your quantity on hands, which you can do, then it also lets you know that those that when I am counting 6 bags, that really means 2 cases. And if my quantity minimum is 9 bags, it knows that I need to order a case to get to that level. It also allows you to categorize items on each individual item detail. The code is where you put in a charge code. You also have the ability to link it to a GL code, as I mentioned, and indicate specific contracting for it. We also have the inventory by location section. This allows us to be able to manage the quantity on hand, the minimums and the maximums by location. You can see here, that's my central supply. I've also got wing 2 and floor 3 closets, just as my fake locations inside the building. And then I also have the ability to cross-reference it. So we know that during COVID, this was a challenge to be able to find a functional equivalent when an item was out of stock. What we do is we allow you to manually search and cross items over to that particular item so that when that one is back ordered, you have the ability to take some action and do something about it. Again, the goal here really is to have every item that you purchase on one of these item masters have visibility to it and be able to manage it. Now, a couple of other quick things. We obviously have a wide variety of reports that are available, and the reports are probably the most actually managed and changed portion of the site. We get more and more reports each development cycle. We have a pretty rapid development cycle as well, so you can imagine that. But we have a number of item reports, order and order history reports, and then we have a whole series of billing reports. Because we have that dispensing component, we give you methodologies for being able to get those charges out and into a billing system as well. So we do silly things like create custom files that allow you to have it in the file format that you need, in addition to doing some billing reports themselves so that you can cross-reference and be able to balance those out. Now, there's a couple of other special features I want to point out just real quickly here. I had mentioned to you early on the back order process, and I wanted to show you real quickly something that's available here for us, and that is the ability to take action on a back order. And so I've created a back order here for myself, and if I click on take action here, there's a couple of things that I can do. I can hide this from the list for some period of time. Think of this as like a snooze button. So for example, if I click on this and I say, okay, this guy is back ordered, but it's supposed to be in by the 15th. And so I don't want to see it there every single day. I just want to be able to see that later on when it's supposed to actually be in and remind me to check up on it. That gives you a snooze button to be able to do that. You also have the ability to close that line on a purchase order. Let's just say that that particular ketchup number 10 can or whatever it is, I found somewhere else and I fulfilled it already. I can close that line so that it doesn't hang around in my back orders forever. But for now, I'm just going to show you, you can snooze this one when you submit it. It says that it's going to be ignored for some period of time, and then it's just removed from my back order items. When the 15th comes along, it's going to show back up in my back ordered items so that I get that reminder dynamically. Another thing that we have the capability of doing now, because I mentioned we do perpetual inventory, we have the ability to know what the quantity on hand is supposed to be or is entered into the system as well as your minimums and your maximums. So the system knows dynamically when an item falls below that minimum that it needs to generate an order to add it back up to the maximum. And so that's what this little notification up here is for. It's saying, hey, you've got items on your formulary or your item master with a quantity on hand less than their minimum. So you need to be able to generate that purchase order. So I'm going to just show you how that works real quickly. If I generate that order, it's going to let me review it, right? It's going to show the min's max is quantity on hands and what dispensing unit of measure originally was in. And then it allows me to just click on that generate order button. I think. Well, maybe I am have my permissions turned off on that as well. Okay, so I apologize for that, but you can generate that order and those 3 items end up on your purchase order as well. So as you go through that process, if you fulfill those, you receive them, they all up their quantity on hands and the quantity on hands go up. And so they get removed from that notification up here at the top as well. Okay, so that takes us through that full process. It shows kind of the basics of the order workflow, shows you a couple of ways to generate a purchase order, shows you a couple of ways to dispense items out of the system, and it shows you some details about the invoicing. So I think we've got about a little over 15 minutes left, so I think now's a good time for us to pause and see if anybody has any questions.
So Kevin is asking, we use Stamply, STAMPLI, for paying our invoices and point-click care for our accounting system. Do you connect with either or both?
We do not connect with Stamply, and let me just tell you, and I'm because I'm not familiar with that system in detail. I'll tell you what we do with other systems that we connect with. So what we typically, we don't do the payment part of procure to pay, if you will. What we do is we normalize the invoice, get it coded, and then send it to somebody to pay, right? And so usually if you just imagine that as QuickBooks, for example, that goes over to that system, it gets reviewed and then paid out of the accounts payable system there. So we don't handle the general ledger and the accounts payable piece. We do everything up to that. So I'm not sure exactly where Stamply fits into that scheme, but if there's an ability to integrate to it, we certainly are interested in doing that. We do that as part of many of our implementations. All of the ones that we currently have, we did with a customer in the implementation process. So we're certainly interested in that. On the point-click care side, we do integrate with them on the dispensing side. We have the ability to integrate with them on the HL7 side for being able to bring resident/patient data into the system for dispensing. There is a charge typically for the HL7 on their side, not on our side. But in order to be able to bring those patients or residents in dynamically from point-click care, there is typically a charge for the HL7 interface. On the dispensing side, we generate what is essentially an ancillary charge file for point-click care, and it's exportable out of our system and importable on their side. So you wouldn't necessarily have to have the HL7 interface to be able to do that, as long as you're willing to manage your patient resident list on our side as well. Just one real quick point before we wrap then about support and ongoing support. The MedProcure team, we're the developers of all of the HPS technology solutions, and we provide dynamic support inside of the application. We have both a support help desk section that allows you to log a ticket and be able to track the progress of that ticket through the system. We also have a training module that has both quick start guides and video training for the application that are integrated into the system. We have a couple of common areas that we have questions about. Setting up these little fob scanners is one of the questions that we often get. We also get questions about where to download the mobile app. So we provide you capability of doing that right there in line. If none of those things work, you can also do a contact us and email us. Or we have an integrated inline chat system as well, so you can chat with live with one of our support team.
Kevin is asking, will HPS contracts be automatically loaded, or do we need to input as used? And I know this is a great answer.
Yeah, we automatically integrate HPS CAT contracts to your item master. So super easy. When we load up your item master, we have a synchronization process that looks for those items and whether or not they're contracted in HPS CAT and automatically loads the little contracted icons on it. That's a great question.
And David, if I'm not mistaken, you do this for not just HPS contracts, but any other source where someone is purchasing things.
Well, that's absolutely possible and true. The HPS contracts are the ones that we do automatically, though, Scott. So,
Gotcha.
but that's an excellent question. In fact, I can show you just real quickly. Let me jump back over to the account section, and I'll just show you. Simply because you have the capability to edit and manage these contracts on your own. Under the item details, you can, tell the system what GPO it's associated with, if it is, or if it's a local contract, you can just put in your local contract number and manage your margin and your markup automatically in the system. So let me just do one of these real quick. I'm going to choose local, and I'm going to just say that this is DQ1234 is my local contract number. And let's just say that I've got a price expiration date of the end of the fiscal year. And then if my base cost for this one, for example, is $10, meaning the contracted price is $10, even though my distribution is $11.82, it's going to automatically show me my distributor margin in line automatically. So all of those features, you're right, Scott, are you can manage individually in addition to any of the ones that are being automatically brought in on the HPS contracts. We also have the ability to import a local contract. So if you have items that you've gone out and negotiated your own private contract on, you can import those local contracts directly into the system and continue to manage them in the item master here.
Read Brian Boyce first. So will the pricing be the same as what we currently pay, or would it find better pricing using this program?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's what you currently pay on the PO Advantage side, right? The transparency to contracts should help with that, right? So if your margin is out of whack, for example, and it shows that you're connected to an HPS contract, it could be an indicator that there's a problem with the pricing, but it's not actively currently looking for opportunities yet. That is our long-term goal, just so everybody on the call knows. I mean, the long-term goal is that we find functional equivalencies and contract opportunities that are not currently connected. And so, but in order to do that, we kind of have to be in progress and kind of have people using the system actively in both HPS CAT and PO Advantage.
Catherine's asking if you could clarify. So members can see what their contract savings are.
Their contract savings, well, we've got some reporting that does that, and you certainly can see whatever the markup margin is, right? But in terms of contract savings, no, that's really the job of CAT at this moment in terms of, rebates and those kind of things. We envision being able to see some of that, in the future inside of PO Advantage as well, but that's not really the goal of PO Advantage right now.
This question, Brian, you can always reach out to HPS. We have a lot of tools in place to help our members, choose items on, whether it be the Gordon contract or maybe the McKesson contract or what have you. So definitely reach out to us and we can help with that process in the meantime. And then, David, one question I just kind of have for the group, and I know Kevin is typing again, so he probably has another question coming in. But if you've piqued their interest or they have other team members, they want to see this. I know HPS will be doing some regular, like every 2 weeks, these webinars that our members will be invited to. But what would be the next step if they said, hey, David, this really interests me, and I kind of just want to talk more about what does it look like for my community?
Yeah, first of all, you should reach out to your HPS rep first, right? And your HPS rep can coordinate a one-on-one demonstration with either me or one of my other team members. Typically, you saw how long it takes to go through a quick overview is about 45 minutes. We'd love to have an hour to hour and a half to really dig in. And the reason that is we'd like to do at least 10 or 15 minutes understanding your organization and how the application might benefit specifically your organization. And that way we can sort of customize what we show and how we show it and those kind of things as we go along. So that's the next step really is to reach out to your HPS representative and sort of have them help coordinate a demonstration that's more in depth.